Is this thing on?
Hello everybody and welcome along to another FTBIE with TechnoJock. We're on the roof of our base and you'll see a little bit of a difference here. I've been crafting away and have managed to make an awful lot more of these hardened solar panels, so much so we don't even have enough of the leadstone solar panels to cover our roof properly. So we'll have a look inside. And down in here you'll see a few differences. First and foremost, we have our basic capacitor bank now fills this entire area. We've got rid of all the conduit that was there, and these basic capacitor banks now fill this entire bit, giving us 100 million RF in storage here. And as you can see, it's filling up rather nicely. 100 of these basic capacitor banks, and we will in the future, spoilers, we will in the future fill this up. We'll take these ones down and we'll fill them up with these the normal capacitor banks. No, that is the normal capacitor banks that we've got. Oh, it's the same thing. That's why it's and then we will move on up to the vibrant capacitor banks, because we can use these capacitor banks and upgrade them. So we need 2 of them plus some other stuff to make those ones in the store. The 25 million. So we'll have a huge amount of storage there. That'll be really good. I have rewired things as well, because as well as these capacitor banks and the solar panels, I made new conduits or flux ducts. The hardened ones that we were using simply weren't up to the job, and we had bottlenecks all over the place, so I have got rid of those, and I just made a huge amount in one big lot. So they're not bad to make. They're just time consuming, really, much like an awful lot of the other stuff. So yeah, fluxed electrum, which we've done before. Signalum nuggets we had a bunch of anyway. Hardened lumium glass is much like hardened glass, but instead of lead you use lumium, which obviously a little bit more time consuming to get, but the alloy smelter is very handy for that. You can just stick glowstone, tin and silver into it, which is behind here at the moment because I've been doing a bunch of concrete up. And yeah, I've kind of put all the RF consuming machines along here and shifted our industrial craft ones over into the middle together like that. So it's a little bit of a spaghetti mess just now. It's a work in progress. And again, oh hello, just in case. Yeah, I've changed things around. I just had a warp item duct. It's not particularly important that it's that. And this is happily going away. We are really wanting uranium. There's been a couple of instances when I have logged on and I have been out of uranium and my reactor has been offline. So that's that. But this is keeping up quite nicely. The Ender quarry is running at the moment and we're still getting about, depending, we're getting up to 800 RF per tick, but sometimes a little bit less, depending on what it's mining up at the time. This over here is a little alarm system that I've got set up. It's really loud, so I apologise if it goes off at any point soon. But yeah, because we're using an awful lot of solar power, the daylight sensor, which works indoors for some reason, I don't know why, but hey-ho. Yeah, when this doesn't have any daylight, it will set off this howler alarm, which is extremely loud. Why is that set to 64? It should be down at about 8. There we go. That'll make it a little bit more tolerable, I think. Other things. What other things? Oh yeah, Stalker's come up with this idea of the post box. So he's made ender chests for everybody, which is really nice. And then I thought, oh, well, how would we know what posts for who or for whom? So I thought we'll get these thermal expansion backpacks or satchels, and name them in the Toolforge. We could have done it with name tags and anvils, but using the Toolforge is much easier. So yeah, and this way you can see what's in it. So I've put some redstone for people because my redstone farm is ridiculously overpowered. It was actually completely full and voiding redstone when I logged in the other day. So let's take a look down at the reactor core. We'll cover that in a second. Reactor, not a huge amount else going on. I've made one of these caches for the uranium-238 because we've got such a lot of it, as you can see, over 1,000. I'll quickly change that up for an iron chest, simply because aesthetically I prefer the look of the iron chest in here, and I want to get rid of that at some point, but we will deal with that later. And that's not really changed up much. We're still okay there. Yep. Do want to stick some upgrades in those machines. Over here, aesthetically, I have just put some carpenter's blocks with some Futura blocks around it, but this is all done up. As you can see, we do actually have all the fuel rods in there, and we're using MOX as well as uranium. And I have changed things up a little bit under here because I discovered what the issue was with my setup. If you recall, I had a cache, and then there was an item duct that was pulling out the spent fuel rods and putting them into the cache, and then pulling out from that with the Ender IO conduits. But the issue was because of where I had this. It was applying a redstone signal, which was affecting the item conduit. So now this one is just doing, it will input anything that will go into the reactor except depleted fuel rods, because fuel rods and components are the only things that can go in there, and we don't have any components over in these boxes, we just have fuel rods. So by denying the depleted ones, just full fuel rods will go in there. And then on the extract, we're whitelisting depleted fuel rods. So that's working nicely now. Very happy with how that is all working in there. Let's have a look up at the wiring actually. So yeah, wiring system a little bit more sensible now. We've just got a small-ish capacitor bank here. I just had these three, so there's nothing going in or out of it at the moment because it's just holding steady. But this is the only power going over here from there, and this just takes in power from there. So the line up from here, we're using the transfer node, the RF transfer node. It does change EU power into RF, but not the other way around. That's what I have discovered with that. So that's sitting on top of the reactor and then just going straight into the energy conduit, or flux duct rather, sorry, and that goes up and fills up our main capacitor bank, and it fills up this one. There's no power coming down from the main capacitor bank into this one, but it splits the power here, half into that and half up there, unless of course this one's full, which it is at the moment, and then this MFE can power our machines down there for quite some considerable time, even if this system is empty. So if for some reason the reactor goes off, for instance we run out of fuel, this will slowly but surely discharge as our machines use power down there. But the only time they should really be using power is when they're making fuel rods. So that's, yeah, sort of an emergency. And we do have the emergency backup power of the solar panels as well, because this is now set to keep its power, and it's just using the power from the solar panels, which comes down and into the system there. Yeah, so that power comes down. Haven't done that with flux ducts, haven't quite gotten around to it, and it's low power system, so I'm not too bothered. So yeah, this charges up that goes over into the bat box. It's just a small bat box, but it doesn't take an awful lot of power to keep this thing up at temperature, and that's really the only thing that's powering at the moment. Up here, I do not have these connected up at the moment. The power is simply not good enough to be able to cope with that. If I have I think if I have the Ender Quarry off, then it would cope with some of it. But yeah, it's pretty power hungry. I did have it running one time when I was away and made myself nearly well. Not even 3/4 of a bucket of UU matter, and I came back and everything was out of power. Absolutely everything was out of power. I had to fiddle around and do stuff to be able to even get enough power to make fuel rods. So that's the situation at the moment. But this is really good. This makes our cobblestone and our recyclers are all sitting here, and it would pull over. This just pulls over, and all of this is good. And we've got patterns now for plutonium and the MOX nuclear fuel. We could make a few plutonium, but not quite enough for MOX fuel yet. And that's how that stands. Now, if you were paying attention earlier on when I was in my inventory, oh, it's nighttime apparently. Yeah, it's really loud. Thank you. Yeah, if you were paying attention to there we go. My inventory earlier on, you'll have seen I had some bee things. I have started doing some bees. So we've got a centrifuge, and you'll see I've already got a fair bit of stuff in here, and I have a beealyzer. And over here I've got another carpenter setup and a squeezer setup for getting seed oil. So I've just been using the plants that we've got down here for our food. Yeah, all these things apart from the wheat, I can turn the produce of this into seeds and then bung it up into the squeezer. Oh, other changes. The Pam's Harvestcraft stuff updated as well at some point. So now the squeezer works differently. You now get your soybeans turn in the squeezer. They go, well, let's show you. They go from soybeans into firm tofu, no, silken tofu first. Boop. Silken tofu first, and then the silken tofu, when it goes through, goes into firm tofu and soy milk. So you get two produce out of that. Which is probably a little bit more sensible and realistic. And soy milk can be used to make cheese. So I now no longer need the cows, and one of them has disappeared anyway. So I can just take the soy milk that we get from this, there we go, and pop it in here, and it makes cheese and pops it over here, which is nice. So this is doing quite nicely at the moment. It just made another burger, and we've got some cheese, so that's fine. I do need to get some snowballs and put it in here for the smoothies. And that's the only thing that's missing. Back to bees, anyway. So, because I'm in a desert area, and all of the areas around here are pretty hot, normal bee breeding isn't really a viable option over there. So I have come back over to my old haunt. And if you remember, this was an apiarist's building in the first place. So yeah, I've got some bees going on over here, and that's all clogged up. These ones seem to be going quite nicely. So yeah, this is my first foray into bees, and I didn't particularly want to be derping around on camera with it too much, and I'm aware that a lot of bees is an awful lot of standing around and waiting. So what I've got is, I have got forest queens. These have stabilised and have been breeding up quite nicely, so I took them out. We've got a decent stockpile of those, and the meadows ones were doing quite well as well. And I think ignoble means that they will eventually die off, and I didn't want that to happen. Just breeding up a stockpile because I might need them for some reason, so I just took them out. We've got a bunch of random bees in here. I do have these modest ones that would be able to be bred up in the oh, that's a pristine one. I might do that actually. Yeah, these ones will breed and work in the desert, so I can use them. And there's some other stuff here. So I'm just kind of learning as I go along. I have automated this to a certain degree. What this will do is it will pull anything out and put it back in. So when the queen dies off and you get a princess, the princess will go there, and the drones will go there if they can. But as you can see here, this is kind of clogged up because there's stuff backed up in the servo. So if I take some of this stuff out, for a start I want to take that out and put a Valiant in there, because I am attempting to get Valiants. There we go. Princess has gone in. There we go. And we can take that stuff out. So I do have some frames in here, made some chocolate frames because we are getting cocoa chromes from something. Yeah, so I'm just kind of playing around with that at the moment, and we'll see what happens. And I'm going to put these ones in there, and I was going to put those ones in there as well. Those were ones that I had mined up earlier on. So let's go back over, and we can see what we want to do. Ooh. What is that? Oh, it's up at... It's gone up to 99%, so it's holding steady. So the reactor will have turned off, and this is on. So we are mining, and we are holding reasonably steady. Excellent. I'm very, very pleased about that. And we've got some more uranium, so that's good. So it's only really at night time that we need to kick the reactors on now that we've got up to this level. So that's really good. So with a few more solars we should be at the stage that we can turn on the mass fab and that kind of stuff down there, and we can get those going. So I think what I really want to do is I want to get a bunch of overclockers done to be able to get those machines running at a decent speed. But the main problem that we're running into now is the reason that we've actually got the bees. Look at that. I've only got 7 blocks of lapis. Look at that. Just over a stack of lapis in there. And yes, we are mining it up. And we've got a couple of... Maybe we could manage maybe 2 stacks, 3 stacks. There you go. Not even 3 stacks of lapis left. So that's the problem we've got at the moment. So I thought, bees could be the solution to that, because there's not an awful lot of options for getting lapis. Yes, I can mine it up, and yes, I could fortune it, but putting fortune onto the ender quarry is going to kill our power again. And there's not an awful lot else I can do. So those are got from lapis anyway. We get it from treasure, yes, we know that. I could go manually mining for it. I could make a wool farm and do that, but that's only a 5% chance. Yeah, I'm kind of at that stage. So I thought, why not try doing bees? There's a bunch of other stuff that we want to get from as well that we could got from that we could get from bees, so let's do that. So we're kind of waiting on bees just now before we can do a huge amount more. I do have some more stuff for making solar, so I'm going to do that as well. Yeah. Well, I have been busy with getting the solars sorted out, and I thought, why am I bothering at this point just having them? I mean, it did look pretty having them all laid out nicely, but yeah, I've consolidated myself down to this stage. So where possible, I have gone up to the next stage. So these solar panels, the resonant ones there, as you can see, do 512 RF per tick, which is quite pleasant. And then we go down to 64, then the 8 for those ones, and 1 for that. So that's where we're sitting at the moment with that. And each time I get up to 8 of one, then I consolidate it down to the next one. So that's where we're at, and it's keeping going nicely. Other things that have happened in between, I have turned off the quarry. The quarry's been running for quite some considerable length of time, and we've got a bunch of stuff, and we've even filled up our cobblestone compacting drawer here. It's completely full, so it started spilling over, and into that. The things that we were really needing are this electrotine and of course the lapis, but it's coming out at such a slow rate that I'm going to have filled up of absolutely everything else. I'm going to have used a huge amount of power, blah 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 blah. So what I want to be able to do at the moment, this is still on because I've shifted the other end of the tesseract down to the level in between, the service level below here, and it is now supplying power to all of this stuff. Let's go down actually. I don't really have a hugely convenient way of getting down, but we'll go down here. There we go. So this is what I've done. I've cut this capacitor back to just the one just now, and it's supplying power over there the same as it was before. It's just the one capacitor rather than three. The other two I have shifted over here. So these two here are now supplying power up to this MFSU, and they can supply, because it's a multi-block of two, they can supply a maximum of 2000 RF per tick up into that, which they are currently doing, and the tesseract is pulling the power from our main power supply up there. Remember, this power supply keeps that topped up, but then just feeds up to our main power, and then that comes back down to here. This power is just supplying those warp item ducts, which isn't hugely necessary quite at this point. But when we get these recyclers going at full tilt, then they will need cobblestone as quickly as possible. So they're just doing it as and when at the moment, and it's going through, and we are getting some amplification. There we go. So yeah, it's just to make it run as quickly as possible. When we get to that point, I've no idea how much these warp item ducts actually take in terms of RF. They've only got 5,600 in them, but I don't know how much it takes per operation. Yeah, I suppose I could work it out. So that's working, and I've put a fluid ejector upgrade, so instead of going into that tank, it's ejected straight into here, and we've got 185. We did have a lot more, but I have used some of it, so we'll toddle downstairs and into here. So we'll need this on. In here, I'll come to this at some point, I really will. But I've been neglecting magic for the time being because I kind of want to get this sorted out. Yeah, I did do a couple of runs of the UU matter to get this point. So we've got plutonium, and then we get these dense iron plates, which, if you recall, are just 9 regular iron plates put through the compressor. So we can get a pellet of RTG fuel, and this pellet of RTG fuel has, or is, going to go over here into our scanner. So if we go in here and pop that in there, that will scan up. Obviously it does take a little while, but that's perfectly acceptable. This has got those two in it, so we can put our crystal memory back in here, so when it's done it will save onto that. Yeah, so I have been looking at big reactors as well. I do want to get something set up relatively soon, hence the RTG fuel, because these things, they're not too bad. The recipe has been changed, but we've made red pipe wire before. The Redstone comp chipset is pretty easy, and the computer is relatively straightforward as well. We've got the inscriber press set up as well and all that sort of stuff, so that's pretty easy to do. None of the rest of the stuff is hugely difficult. We do need some electrical steel and we do need normal steel, but we've got pretty good supply of that. We've got tons of yellorium, and coal to make into the graphite bars is easy enough. Reactor control things are fine. The power tap, a little bit more expensive for that, but you'll need one of these anyway. That's fine. That's unchanged. That's unchanged. And I think that's unchanged, but we would use that one anyway, which I think again is unchanged other than maybe the gold, I don't know. It's these things that are the expensive bit. So you need fused quartz or hardened glass or something like that. And a pellet of RTG fuel per each one, which is pretty horrendous. So that one pellet of RTG fuel we will quite happily go and stick into the scanner, and then we'll see how badly it kills us for UU matter, because I would quite like to get a few of these set up for a decent sized big reactor. So yeah, it's going to take a good while to be able to build up UU matter to get to that point. And of course I've got some apiaries to set up as well, and I think that will probably take me up to a reasonable wrapping up point. Let's just wait until the end and see how badly this is going to be. Well, we definitely need more power in there as well, so I'm going to need to increase that capacitor bank to be able to allow more power in. So I'll do that at some point in between episodes as well. I've got more work cut out for me, I think. So we're nearly there. So I think I should probably have all the stuff that we need to be able to make a big reactor by that point. I don't think it's going to be a very big reactor. Ooh, nearly a whole bucket full. 933.2. Oh well. We need to put that into the pattern storage. Good. There we go. And we can do that. Excellent. I'll take that out and put it back in there, ready for the next run of whatever is going to go into there. I think that does take us up to a relatively sensible wrapping up point. It's just been a kind of an update, really. I didn't do any of this setup on camera because it was just putting down machines. It kind of does itself, really. And I was derping around with bees. I wasn't really doing a huge amount of interesting stuff there. Anyway, yes, hopefully next time we will be able to build ourselves a big reactor together and see how much energy we can get flooding into the base. Once this thing gets fully powered, then we will be able to get more power again, really. It's a case of building on that. And yeah, we shall see what happens. Until the next time, everybody, it's a bye-bye from me, and have a funs. That's an order now. Oh yeah, and don't forget, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and check out the other Seasoned Gamers too. They're doing some cool stuff. See you next time.